The Senate will come to order. I ask everyone present to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Monsignor John Tutone of Parish of Sacred Heart in Island Park, New York, will deliver today's invocation. Monsignor.
Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Before calling upon a blessing for all the members of this very important chamber, a little Bible history. King Solomon, one of the many sons of King David, we're talking maybe 2,600 years ago. David was getting old, and David knew that he would sleep with his ancestors soon, but the succession was not well established. He had many sons. There were many rival camps. They had chosen 3 or 4 individuals, and people divided, and they supported these individuals, probably because of what they were going to get. And there was a lot of jockeying for position, and there was a lot of rumors and a lot of things that were being done in the back rooms of the palaces, very unlike what would ever happen today. All this was going on, and Solomon was one of the contenders. And Solomon wanted very much to be a contender, and he wanted to be king. But he never really stopped and examined his motives. Why do I want to be king? Well, all my brothers want to be king, so I want to be king. So they all were jockeying for position. And finally, in the end, Solomon won, and the people who supported him won. And Solomon found himself king. He suddenly had great power and great authority. And at that moment, he woke up and he said, because he had a good conscience, he said, now what am I going to do that I am king? Every week, people will come to me to make decisions. They will ask me to make decisions that affect their lives, that will either bring them good or bring them harm. I have no idea how to do this. I could listen to the people around me, but I am not sure about what their motives are. I don't know how to do this. So in the book of Kings, in the Old Testament, Solomon made a very sincere prayer. He said, God, help me. I have to make decisions. I don't know what the right decisions will be. I don't want to please people. I want to please you. I want to take good care of the people you have entrusted to me. God, help me to do that. So God answered Solomon as he prayed. And God said to Solomon, he said, if you had asked me to eliminate your enemies, I would have understood. That would have been a reasonable request, and I might have done it for you. If you had asked me for great wealth so that you could buy things for your people and be secure and everyone could be well fed, I probably would have given you that too. He said, but you prayed the prayer of a sincere soul that wants to do good for other people. And that pleases me very much, Solomon. So God told Solomon, I will give you the gift of wisdom, and that when decisions and choices are placed in front of you, because you want to please me and take care of the people that I have entrusted to you. I'll give you the wisdom to do that, Solomon. And I'll give you great wealth, and I'll eliminate your enemies too. I'll do all those things for you because of the sincerity of the prayer of your heart. May I this afternoon pray with all of you. Dear God, give us wisdom. You search hearts. You told us that a sparrow doesn't fall from the sky, that you don't know about it. You read and search the hearts of people. Please look into our hearts. And may each of us, because all in our own way, whether it be here in the Senate for the great state of New York, whether it be at home with your children, whether it be with your friends, your constituents, we all want to take good care of the people that God gives us, because that pleases God. God, we repeat the prayer of Solomon. Give us wisdom. Give us wisdom to seek out your good and to do what pleases you. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Thank you, Reading of the journal.
In Senate, Friday, May 5th, 2023, the Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The journal of Thursday, May 4th, 2023 was read and approved. On motion, the Senate adjourned.
Without objection, the journal stands approved as read. Presentations of petitions, messages from the Assembly, messages from the Governor, reports of standing committees, reports of state committees, select committees, communications and reports from state officers, motions and resolutions. Senator Gineris.
Madam President, good afternoon. Amendments are offered to the following third reading calendar bills by Senator Salazar, Calendar 77, Senator Thomas, Calendar 325, Senator Breslin, Calendar 345, Senator Martinez, Calendar 614, and Senator Fernandez, Calendar 647.
The amendments are received and the bills will retain their place in the third reading calendar. Senator Gineris.
Can we now move to previously adopted Resolution 857 by Senator May? Read its title and recognize Senator May.
The clerk will read.
Senate Resolution 857 by Senator May, memorializing Governor Kathy Hochul to proclaim May 4th, 2023 as Volunteer Firefighters Appreciation Day in the state of New York.
Senator May on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise once again to honor and celebrate our dedicated volunteer firefighters in New York in conjunction with International Firefighter Appreciation Day, which occurred on May 4th. 10 days ago, I had the privilege to attend the annual dinner of the Borodino Fire Department in my district and to honor them and the Spafford Fire Department for 75 years of service to their rural communities. At that meeting, I also recognized David Miller for 50 years of service, a milestone that sounds improbable given the hundreds of hours of training and response time these volunteers put in every year. But I'm willing to bet that a lot of my colleagues in this chamber have made commendations for 50 years of service to volunteer firefighters as well, because the selfless dedication and perseverance of volunteer firefighters is truly a remarkable thing. If you ever have a chance to attend one of these ceremonies, what you'll see is a family. Often, literally, many members of the same family will share the commitment to service as firefighters or auxiliary supporters, but even those who are unrelated by blood are still profoundly connected by their mutual responsibility and sacrifice and the long hours they put in together, the many meals they miss being with their families. They take care of each other's families when others are having to be out on the job. Volunteer firefighters exemplify the character of Americans at their best, with a generosity of spirit and dedication to helping a neighbor in their time of need. This year, in addition to offering support and recognizing their service with this resolution, I'm happy to report that the budget we passed last week includes authority for a fire department to give a training stipend to firefighter trainees to help offset the costs for the training course that they must take. I hope this support for training will make recruitment a bit easier. Volunteer firefighters are a critical lifeline in rural areas, and the number of volunteer firefighters is declining at a disturbing rate. Since 1990, volunteer firefighter membership has dropped 25%. And while the state has made gains in recruitment through a Recruit New York program, lengthy training requirements for new recruits pose significant hurdles for potential new members. I'm proud and honored to sponsor this resolution to show our appreciation for our New York volunteer firefighters in conjunction with International Firefighters Day. Today, I call on our state to take a moment to thoughtfully consider and appreciate the service of our volunteer firefighters in New York and commit ourselves toward policies that adequately demonstrate that appreciation and all that they do, especially for our rural communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Ryan on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senator May, for sponsoring this important resolution. I am proud to have 18 volunteer fire companies in the 61st Senate District. Firefighters all across New York and across the country. They perform heroically. They take great personal risk, time away from their family, but they are the first responders in suburban and rural New York State. It's only right that we take a day to recognize them for their service to the rest of us and to everyone in New York State. So thank you, Madam President, and I vote in the affirmative on this very important resolution.
Senator Oberacker on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator May, for bringing this, again, very important resolution. You know, as a volunteer firefighter myself, I remember taking my training, which at that time was called the Essentials, and it was for 39 hours back in 1986. Nowadays, our training hours have expanded to well over 100. And it's an interesting dichotomy that we're looking at losing or not having access to as many people who want to become a volunteer firefighter. There is no greater service that you can do throughout than to support, number one, or more importantly, go through the process and become a volunteer firefighter. I believe that wholeheartedly. And number two, I have to bring this up. At the last call that I made, it was an accident call on our interstate, and to the great brevity of my brothers and sisters in the fire department, I had picked up a broom and I was actually sweeping some of the glass off of the road. And much to the pictures that were taken, that the senator was actually doing some work in the community. So I find it, you know, not only is this fraternal camaraderie when you're going in on a life-threatening situation, there's a lot of brevity, there's a lot of good fellowship that comes from it. So again, Senator May, thank you for bringing this forward. They are the lifebloods of our community, and I proudly vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Rollison on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator May, for having this resolution to honor our volunteer firemen in the fire service. I, like my colleague, Senator Oberacker, was a volunteer firefighter for 14 years. I took my essentials in 1976 at the age of 18. My father was a life member of the Croft Corners Fire Company. I grew up around the firehouse. That's why I became a volunteer firefighter. And what we've seen over the years in many fire districts and communities throughout this state, as Senator May has said, it is difficult to recruit and retain members in the volunteer fire service. I saw that in the Arlington Fire District, where I served and my dad served, where our fire company went from a fully volunteer firehouse. We were nicknamed the Aggressive and Proud Engine Company. That over the years it was more difficult and became more of a career, and is now a fully career firehouse 24 hours a day. So I applaud what the state of New York is doing and trying to help in the service of the volunteer fire service and making things, incentivizing things for people to join fire departments and to do the training, which obviously is much more than it was in 1976 when I joined. But I will say this in closing, Madam President, the life lessons and the service to the public that I learned there has helped me here in this esteemed body, and I proudly vote aye.
Senator Rhodes on the resolution.
No, thank you, Madam President. I, too, want to rise in support of the resolution and thank Senator May for bringing up really an important issue. Our volunteer fire departments serve our communities day in and day out. And I want to thank Senator Oberacher and Senator Rollison for their service. I've had the honor of being a volunteer firefighter for now 31 years. And there aren't a lot of places. I know Senator May was referencing attending a 50-year ceremony. We actually just attended a 75-year ceremony. There aren't a lot of, and I love attending those because there aren't a lot of places where I still feel like a probie, like the young guy in the room. I love attending those ceremonies because it makes me feel young, but you're also recognizing so much tremendous service. In those 31 years, I had the chance to serve as a line officer for 9 of those 31, and from that vantage point, I've had the blessing to see some tremendous acts of compassion, of heroism, courage, really demonstrating the best of what America is all about. These are individuals that get up from the family dinner table, get up from their jobs, get up from their beds in the middle of the night, and put their own lives at risk, going to help protect the lives and property of others, seeking nothing in return other than the satisfaction of a job well done and the knowledge that they were there to help a neighbor in their time of need. And that's the kind of thing that we should be encouraging. The job has become much more difficult, much more dangerous. The hours that are required have become much more significant. And so thank you, Senator May, and the rest of our body today for taking the time to recognize that service and sacrifice of all of our volunteers. I wouldn't deign to speak on behalf of all of them, but I know that we all very much appreciate that sentiment and appreciate the gesture. So thank you, and I proudly vote aye.
Senator Borrello on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to thank the sponsor and certainly associate myself with her comments and the comments of my colleagues, especially those who also serve as volunteer firefighters. Thank you very much for your service. I think it's also important to point out, on top of being volunteers, they also, about 90% of the calls are actually EMS calls, emergency calls. These are heart attacks, car accidents, not just fires that these folks respond to. The training is extensive, the risk is great, and God bless them, because in rural areas like I represent, they are literally the only line of defense in some cases. I will tell a quick story about a time when I live in a place called Sunset Bay, which often floods. We had a situation a few years back where there was a flood, and the bay was evacuated, but our firefighters remained behind at the fire hall in Sunset Bay. And thank God they did, because a fire broke out at a house in these icy cold waters in February that were flooding our bay. These volunteer firefighters waded into those rushing waters with down power lines around them to fight that house fire. And thank God they did, otherwise it would have spread to possibly dozens of other houses. That's the kind of sacrifice our volunteer firefighters make. And this is a great day to honor them, and thank you all, and God bless all that serve. Thank you.
Senator Martins on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, rise to support this resolution. I want to thank Senator May for bringing it before the House. You know, you think about the world we live in. You know, people lament the fact that we probably live in a world that's more selfish today than perhaps it has been in prior generations. And then you look at those people who volunteer, who put themselves in the line of danger for their fellow residents, for community members, sometimes total strangers, committing that at a call that they will leave their homes, the safety of their homes, sometimes in the middle of the night, not knowing what they will face, but they will go out there and face it because it is for the good of the community. People have mentioned that the fire service and the volunteer fire service in particular are the backbones of our suburban and rural communities, and that's true, Madam President. I don't know a single volunteer firefighter who also isn't a member of several other volunteer organizations, isn't teaching Little League, isn't imparting some part of themselves to someone else, isn't active and volunteering in other things that make our communities what they are. And so to all of the members of this chamber, past and present, who have volunteered, a heartfelt thank you. to our entire volunteer fire service across the state, a great thank you. And I do applaud the efforts in this budget and in prior budgets, not only to support the fire service, but also, hopefully, to incentivize continued volunteerism, because it is a great part of who we are as the great state of New York. Madam President, I vote aye.
Senator Harkin on the resolution.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'd like to thank Senator May for sponsoring this resolution. And it's remarkable the bipartisan spirit of support for this resolution. I want to join my colleagues. Much has been said already about the value and the service of our volunteer firefighters. The majority of my district are volunteers, although I do have some paid professionals as well. And what I will say is the only difference is one group gets paid and one group are volunteer. Their training is exactly the same. They take the same classes, the same requirements, the same certifications as professionals. Only in the volunteer case, they do it for their love of community and love of their neighbors. And I share what I've heard from other colleagues today is they are not just responding to fires, traffic accidents, overdoses. In fact, most of the Narcan trainings that we've done in the district, we have done in firehouses because they are often the first on the scene. Other colleagues have mentioned the time they spend away from their homes. But the other thing that we want to mention is the money that they save taxpayers in many of our municipalities. We did a study years ago when I was a county legislator about just one of our communities, and that if they had to have, they have 3 different volunteer companies, if just one of those were converted to a paid fire department, it would have tripled the budget of that town, would have tripled it. And so that's the value they bring, people who put their heart and soul into serving their community, but saving valuable taxpayer dollars. So I'm proud to support this resolution, proud to vote aye, and once again, I thank Senator May for bringing it to the floor. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Weber on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd also like to thank Senator May for bringing this very important issue up for a vote today. You know, Rockland County is an all-volunteer fire department, and the work that they do is invaluable. As many of my colleagues have mentioned, I've gone to a lot of fire installation dinners recently, and we've recognized people for 70 years of service. Unbelievable amount of service. It's a family affair in most cases. You see people from grandfathers to their grandchildren on the same fire department, and it's a very important service that they provide. Senator Harkin is right. You know, the amount of money that we save as taxpayers at the county level, at the town and village level, is amazing. And if we had a paid fire department, taxes would be that much higher. So we really need to make sure that we appreciate the service that they do every day, and I proudly vote aye on the resolution.
Senator Jackson on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise as a New York City resident, and we do not have volunteer firefighters. But I do recognize the work that all of you have done as volunteer firefighters to keep our residents safe. And as all of you have said, not only in fires, but in car accidents and medical emergencies, it's extremely important. And I just imagine if I'm driving upstate, and if you were not there in an emergency, I may be dead. Bottom line is, let me thank you for your service. My colleague that I sit next to for the past 4 years, let me thank you for putting this forward. And I recognize the dedication and time spent by volunteer firefighters. And I vote aye, Madam President.
Senator Konzenary Fitzpatrick on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, rise to thank the sponsor for this resolution. I had the privilege of serving as the fire commissioner in my hometown, and I know all too well that there's so much time that goes into service, not just in responding to the calls, but in training and in meetings. And it's not just the person that's the volunteer, but it's also the family who supports their loved one in serving their community. Just yesterday, I had the privilege of swearing in officers of the Lakeview Fire Department, one of whom is my 21-year-old nephew, who just became a second lieutenant. And I think it's so important that we do everything we can to encourage the next generation to serve, and how important it is, because, as was just said, on Long Island, we could not afford to provide the service that our volunteers give us. So thank you, Senator May, for this resolution, and I proudly vote aye.
Senator Wyke on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to say thank you to all of our volunteers, especially the ones on Long Island who have come to my rescue on more than one occasion. We had our first house fire when I was 8 months pregnant with my first child, and I'm so very grateful for the work that they did, making sure that my house was kept intact and that we were back in safe and sound. They also came to my rescue when I was in a car accident one time. They were first on scene, making sure that I got to the hospital, and I'm so very grateful for the work that they do. They serve our community day and night. They pour their heart and soul into making sure that they meet all the requirements that are asked of them. And from that, I just say thank you very, very much to all of our volunteer firefighters. And for that, I vote aye. Thank you.
The resolution was previously adopted on May 5th. Senator Gineris.
Madam President, let me just say I appreciate that the day we recognize our great firefighters last Thursday was also Star Wars Day, so may the 4th be with them. Can we now recognize Senator Krueger for an introduction?
Senator Krueger for an introduction.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today to welcome guests from the German Republic of Saxony, a delegation of members of Parliament, and the Consulate General from New York, David Gill, and the Minister President of the Free State of Saxony, Michael Kretschmer, and about 16 others. Only three of them are here with us now. We've spread them out all over New York State. So I would like us to welcome Susan Leithoff, Franziska Schubert, and Albrecht Pallas. And they are all members of the Parliament of the state of Saxony. And I think their visit to us today exemplifies the strong and important relationship between the United States, New York State, and Germany. It's an alliance that provides the world with a lesson on leadership, cooperation, and both countries' commitment to global freedom and democracy. New York, I think many of us know this, has a huge percentage of our population with German descent. 10% of New Yorkers are of German descent. We have a particularly strong partnership with Germany in today's economy. As of January this year, Germany was New York's third largest destination for exports, totaling almost $426 million annually. I think everyone here knows about Global Foundries just down the road in Malta, one of the world's largest semiconductor manufacturers. Many of our state's towns are named after German towns, including Austerlitz, Bern, Hamburg, Mecklenburg, and Potsdam, to name just a few. And anybody who has visited almost anywhere knows that you can have fabulous German food here in New York. I actually proudly represent the Yorkville section of Manhattan, which was always known as Little Germantown, and still has a few excellent German restaurants, and more importantly, a magnificent wholesale supermarket, Chandler and Weber, who is also in my district. I strongly believe that we are all better off for having such a strong relationship with the country of Germany, and very proud to have had an opportunity to meet with the delegation from Saxony. And I know we will continue to work together through all the challenges all of our nations face in this world. And so I'd like to thank our guests for their visit and offer them all the privileges of the House. Thank you, Madam President.
To our guests, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. Senator Gineris.
Can we now call on Senator Scarcella-Spanton for an introduction?
Senator Scarcella-Spanton for an introduction.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today to acknowledge the Garvin family that is here with us today to honor Eric Gardner's memory and celebrate his life. Earlier this year, we lost Eric Garvin to a senseless act of violence while he was traveling abroad doing the thing that he loved the most. Eric was an innovative and effective professional with years of experience in community work and public safety, serving our city in the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. The Garvin family comes from an indelible Staten Island family, and we have many of his family members here with us today. We have so many members of the community. I want to commend and thank Assemblymember Charles Fall for bringing them up. Our former council member, Debbie Rose, is here as well. And I want to thank especially Colonel Eric Garvin Sr., his dad, Anne Mary, and Naomi Garvin, and of course, Miss Marge Garvin, who's here with us as well. To Mr. and Mrs. Garvin, I am so sorry for your loss. Your son's memory will live on forever. You are in our thoughts and prayers, and I hope today we made this special for you, and we will continue to keep his memory alive. Thank you.
To our guests, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. Senator Gineris.
And now please recognize Senator Mayer for an introduction.
Senator Mayer for an introduction.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I'm very pleased to introduce a number of women, young women up in the gallery from the UMass Women into Leadership program. I've been honored to meet with women in this program each year that I've served here. This is based at the University of Massachusetts in the College of Social and Behavioral Science, but it is a program that encourages young women to learn about public service, to be exposed to leadership and pathways into leadership, and to have the opportunity to work together to build their confidence and to help them determine how they can best contribute to our community. Designed to provide hands-on training and practical preparation for a career in politics, government, and public leadership, this group is organized around 4 central components: leadership training, shared community through assigned mentors and networking, academic instruction, and applied experience through internships and job shadowing. I met with these young women earlier today, and we had a very thoughtful conversation. I encourage them all to consider being among my younger colleagues who are running for office in their communities they serve. And I would say very proudly that I found one of my first employees as a legislator through this program, and she turned out to be not only a fantastic employee, but someone who found her own voice and things that she was passionate about and went on to fight about them. Please recognize the director, Michelle Gongalves, and acknowledge these wonderful guests, these young women who are going on to very bright futures. Thank you, Madam President.
To our guests, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. Senator Gineris.
Madam President, Senator May would like to open the resolution we took up earlier for co-sponsorship.
The resolution is open for co-sponsorship. Should you choose not to be a co-sponsor of the resolution, please notify the desk. Senator Gineris.
Can we now take up the calendar, please?
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 70, Senate Print 101A by Senator Ryan, enactment of the Vehicle and Traffic Law and the Real Property Law.
Read the last section.
Section 9, this act take effect of 1 year after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 191, Senate Print 1812 by Senator Addabbo, an act to establish a commission to be known as the New York Seawall Study Commission.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 404, Senate Print 1448A by Senator Sanders, an act to amend the education law.
Read the last section. Lay it aside.
Calendar number 443, Senate Print 4899 by Senator Robinson, enactment of the highway law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this action take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, G. Norris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins.
Announce the... Ooh. Senator Ralston to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank my colleague, Senator Kennedy, and the members of the Transportation Committee for bringing this out and getting this to the floor. I wanted to just take a brief moment to talk about this individual. Chief Daniel Niman was a sachem, which means a leader of the Wappinger people. He was a diplomat, a combat veteran, a friend of the Patriot cause, and a man of enormous integrity and humility who affected all those who knew him. And despite these admirable qualities, however, Chief Niman was someone who rarely figures into the history of the American Revolution. He is what we would call a forgotten founder. With the naming of this state highway in the town of Fishkill today, it is my sincere belief that we can begin to rectify this oversight and place Chief Niman in the pantheon of American heroes, where he absolutely rightly belongs. He was born around 1726, and he was raised in Fishkill, New York. It is said that Daniel learned English from a neighbor and a friend, Madam Brett, whose homestead is still in Dutchess County today and is the oldest homestead in that county. His language skills and good nature quickly elevated him as a capable negotiator and spokesman for the Wappinger Indians, who had settled lands in the Hudson Valley a century before he was born. Now, he fought in the French and Indian Wars on the side of the British, but he became frustrated when the Crown government ignored Wappinger property claims following that conflict. So he argued these disputes in courts of law, even taking his claims to London along with a delegation of Native Americans, and unfortunately these claims too were denied by the King's government. He now had a choice to make: give up the fight for freedom and justice or join the cause of independence. In 1777, the diplomat put away his legal texts and picked up a sword. Together with his son, Captain Abraham Niman, Daniel would lead his people in the Stockbridge Militia, which was an all-volunteer company of Native Americans, mostly Mohicans, organized by General George Washington. This militia was with General Washington at Valley Forge and fought bravely alongside white and black Continental Army soldiers at the Battle of Saratoga, which many military experts consider to be the turning point of the American Revolution. In August of 1778, he was killed in action. His men were ambushed at the Battle of Kingsbridge, which is today Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx. Now, with his last words, he said he was old and aged as a tree, and thus would stand and die there. His prophecy came true. Chief Daniel Niman and most Native Americans of the 60-odd Stockbridge Company were killed that day beneath a canopy of hardwoods in the Northwest Bronx. Thus had the diplomat soldier laid down his life for the freedom and independence of two homelands, the Hudson Highlands territory of the Wappingers and the emergent United States. Madam President, this act to memorialize one of Fishkill's state highways in tribute of Chief Daniel Niman, I believe will go a long way to returning Chief Niman and New York's Native American population to the center of the war for independence and early history of our nation. It's a small, but it's an important reminder of the contributions of the previously unsung groups to the American story, as well as a proper appreciation of the past can help us forge a more perfect union today. I'll just close with this, Madam President. In 1968, in the 5th grade, I was on Ninum Mountain in Putnam County. I climbed a fire tower with my friend Richard Riccone. It took this bill and this action of this Senate. Now I understand the importance of that mountain, why it was named for that person who gave us the opportunity to be free and to be here. And I proudly support this bill, Madam President.
Senator Ralston to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Aye, 61.
The bill is passed. Senator Lanza.
Madam President, could we please pause in recognition of the passage of Senator Ralston's first bill?
Congratulations, Senator. Secretary will read.
Calendar number 461, Senate Print 2349A by Senator Myrie, enactment of the election law.
Laid aside.
Calendar number 486, Senate Print 4459 by Senator Ashby, enactment of the state law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act take effect on the 1st of January.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator Ashby to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank my colleagues for joining me in support of this bill, and thank every Purple Heart recipient for their sacrifice, and some of which made the ultimate sacrifice. Purple Heart is a little different in terms of military recognitions and awards in that the criteria for it and the process, the award process, is expedited. You have to be wounded while facing an enemy combatant, and that's it. Some of the other awards, Bronze Star, Archon with Valor, Silver Star, they require a lengthy approval process, review boards, and can take a long time. But the Purple Heart is pretty simple. Were you wounded defending our country? And that's it. And so too should our reverence be for their sacrifice. I vote aye.
Senator Ashby to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Aye 61.
The bill is passed. Senator Lanza.
We paused in recognition of Senator Ashby having his first bill
Congratulations,
passed in
Senator.
this House.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 542, Senate Print 1899 by Senator Stavisky, enactment of the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act take effect on the 1st of January.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Aye 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 560, Senate Print 5082 by Senator Fernandez, enact to establish a Latina Suicide Prevention Task Force.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act take effect on the 60th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator Fernandez to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. Suicide amongst Latina teens has reached epidemic levels, and they need our care and support. Latinas, specifically young Latinas, are the demographic with the highest suicide rate in New York City. Nearly 1/3 of them have said that they have struggled with depression. According to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, 1 out of 7 teenage Latinas attempt suicide, a rate higher than any other teenage ethnic group nationwide. This should scare you, as it does me. Our Latina youth in this country face enormous obstacles and pressures, and we need to make sure that they don't feel like there is no other way. For many Latinas, especially first generation, from a young age, we are responsible for our family, navigating the systems in a new country with a new language, acting as a translator, accountant, caretaker, all while going to school and holding a job and sometimes caring for the family. That is a tremendous amount of anyone to handle, regardless of age or ethnicity. But beyond that, young Latinas have the pressure to succeed in America while at the same time uphold deep cultural traditions to honor our families and sacrifice and continue their legacy. Like many cultures, unfortunately, there is a stigma attached to mental health and getting help when you know you need mental health. This breaks my heart. That is why I feel so strongly about this task force and the immediate creation of it. Latinas around the state need to see our faces and hear our voices telling them that they are not alone and there is a whole community out there ready to hear them and know their experiences. Not only do we hear you, but we are here to help you. We are assembling experts from around the state to attack this issue head-on, as well as to conduct the research to direct our efforts to areas that need it most and discover potential areas that have been overlooked. We are talking about Latina suicide prevention, but the beauty of this task force is that it will benefit all women, particularly fellow young women of color who share so many of these similar struggles. Thank you, and I vote aye.
Senator Fernandez to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Aye 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 601, Senate Print 5905 by Senator Bridgeport, enactment of the Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law.
Read it. Laid aside.
Calendar number 616, Senate Print 5603 by Senator Comrie, enactment of the Public Authorities Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 618, Senate Print 6285 by Senator Comrie, enactment of the Not-for-Profit Corporation Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 631, Senate Print 5890 by Senator Breslin, an act to amend the insurance law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 641, Senate Print 5442 by Senator Scarcella Spanton, an act to amend the real property tax law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the second day of January.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 642, Senate Print 443 by Senator Skoufis, an act to amend the education law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar number 642, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Cancellieri Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Griffo, Hellman, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollison, Steck, Tedisco, Walzek, Weber, and White. Ayes 40, nays 21.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 649, Senate Print 6007 by Senator Parker, an act to amend the civil practice law and rules.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 649, those senators voting in the negative are Senators Borrello, Gallivan, Griffo, Hellman, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Steck, Tedisco, Walzek, and White. Ayes 50, nays 11.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 652, Senate Print 4540 by Senator Ramos, an act to amend the labor law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 660, Senate Print 3607 by Senator Webb, an act to amend the general business law.
Read the last section.
Section 12, this act shall take effect 1 year after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator Webb to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to explain my vote. This legislation amends the general business law to ensure that laser hair removal technicians receive state-approved education and training to practice in New York State. This is a very straightforward piece of legislation that ensures that laser hair removal technicians will follow the same licensing schedule and regulations as the fields of nail specialty, waxing, natural hair styling, aesthetics, and cosmetology. This is a widely available service we have here in New York and employs approximately 20,000 estheticians. Many of the med spas and small businesses that offer this service are minority and women-owned businesses. By streamlining the licensure process and providing a transition to a more regulated industry, we can ensure that these businesses can continue to operate in the context of greater public protection. This is a common sense measure intended to provide oversight and public protection. By adding laser hair removal technicians to the group of appearance enhancement professionals that, again, are already regulated by the state, we will ensure that New Yorkers seeking this cosmetic procedure can do so safely. I vote aye, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Senator Webb to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 660, voted in the negative, Senator Walzek. Ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 661, Senate Print 4036 by Senator Mannion, an act to amend the general business law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this action take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 661, voted in the negative, Senator Walzek. Ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 707, Senate Print 5913A by Senator Chu, enactment of the public health law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action take effect on the 1st of July.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator Chu to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today to explain my vote on this important piece of legislation. Since 2018, free and accessible menstrual products have been available in public school, serving students from grades 6 to 12. Unfortunately, private school students were left out of this requirement. This bill will require that non-public school students also have access to free menstrual products in school bathroom, reducing missed class time, destigmatizing menstruation, and ensure our students can fully participate in our school activities. Today's students face pressures from social media, mental health challenge, and the residue effects of COVID. Bodily autonomy for students who have periods should not be the one more barrier they will face when it comes to their educational experience. For this reason, I vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Chu to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Webb to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank my colleague, Senator Chu, for introducing this legislation, which would require that menstrual products are offered for free in non-private schools, ensuring that these students have equal access to menstrual products as their public school peers. One of the things that I wanted to mention in my district in particular is that when you think about access to menstrual products, this is something that disproportionately impacts people who are low income. And so just in my district alone in Broome County, women are the largest demographic living in poverty. Women ages 18 to 24 make up 12% of the population of folks who are living in poverty, and ages 25 to 34 around 7%. Menstruation products are a necessity, and far too many women living in poverty simply can't afford them. In fact, government assistance programs do not even allow for the purchase of hygiene products with subsidies such as SNAP, for example. For people who have to have these necessary products, not only to address their physical wellness, but also taps into their emotional state as well. As the chair of the Women's Issues Committee, I'm proud to support legislation that normalizes women's bodies and which erases the sense of shame that is often still connected to our conversations around menstruation, also known as the period. The financial cost of menstruation, a natural biological function experienced by more than half of our population, should never be a barrier to full participation in education, sports, and other activities that allow for having an equitable quality of life. Again, I want to thank Senator Chu for bringing forth this important piece of legislation. I will be voting aye, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Senator Webb to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 707, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Kesner Fitzpatrick, Felder, Martins, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Rhodes, Walzek, and White. Ayes 52, nays 9.
The bill is passed. Senator Generis.
And I don't want Senator Lanza to have all the fun today, so please recognize Senator Chu on the passage of her first bill.
Woo. Senator Generis, that completes the reading of today's calendar.
On to the controversial calendar.
The Secretary will ring the bell. The Secretary will read.
Calendar number 404, Senate Print 1448A by Senator Sanders, enact to amend the education law.
Senator Lanza, why do you rise?
Madam President, I believe there's an amendment at the desk. I waive the reading of that amendment and ask that you recognize Senator Helming.
Thank you, Senator Lanza. Upon review of the amendment in accordance with Rule 6, Section 4B, I rule it non-germane and out of order at this time.
Accordingly, Madam President, I appeal the ruling of the chair and ask that Senator Helming be heard on the appeal.
The appeal has been made and recognized, and Senator Helming may be heard.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to appeal the ruling of the chair. The proposed amendment is germane to the bill at hand, and let me explain why. The bill before us establishes a task force on safety in school transportation, while the amendment requires appointees of the minority leader of the Senate and the minority leader of the Assembly to be included in all legislatively enacted work groups, task force, commissions, and committee. There really couldn't be any more germane piece of legislation. I want to start by thanking the sponsor for bringing this legislation to the floor. The purpose to address school safety, including safety related to school transportation, is a matter that's a high priority and of extreme importance to all of us. But unfortunately, like far too many bills that come to this floor, this bill creates a new task force, and it doesn't provide the minority leader of either the Senate or the Assembly with any appointments. Committees, task force, and other work groups established by the legislature serve a very important purpose. Working on behalf of the legislature, these entities often collect data and information and provide recommendations back to the legislature. Ultimately, it's often these recommendations that can influence legislative priorities and budget priorities. So for this reason, it's imperative that these committees are comprised of proportionally equal representation from both the majority and minority conferences. The same should be true for the appointments and composition of all legislatively enacted work groups, commissions, councils, advisory groups, committees, or any other legislatively enacted and appointed groups or panels. New Yorkers have equal representation in the legislature. They should also have proportionally equal representation on the legislatively enacted task force. This amendment would provide this representation, as well as ensure that the number of appointees by the legislature shall be proportionally equivalent to the number of appointees by the governor. This check on the executive authority of the governor is important to ensure the best interest of the state citizens are legislatively represented. For these reasons, Madam President, I strongly urge you to reconsider your ruling and support the amendment before you.
Thank you, Senator. I want to remind the House that the vote is on the procedures of the House and the ruling of the chair. Those in favor of overruling the chair signify by saying aye.
Aye. A show of hands.
Without objection, so ordered. Announce the results.
Ayes 21.
The ruling of the chair stands, and the bill in chief is before the House. Senator Gineris.
Madam President, we've agreed to restore the bill in chief to the non-controversial calendar. Please take it up that way.
Bill is restored to the non-controversial calendar. Read the last section.
Section 2 is action to take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Sewell, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 461, Senate Print 2349A by Senator Myrie, an act to amend the election law.
Senator Murray, will
Madam
you
President,
rise?
would the sponsor yield for a few questions?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Thank you, Senator Myrie. Just for some clarification, Section 2, line 10, the bill says, a qualified voter may vote as an absentee voter under this chapter from a residence at which the voter is registered to vote, including any residence to which the voter maintains a continuous connection with an intent to remain, such as a second or vacation home or home where a student lives while attending a college or university. Could you tell me what the phrase intent to remain, what do we mean by that?
Through you, Madam President, that is a codification of what the courts have already held. In one case, Ferguson versus McNabb at the Court of Appeals, subsequently in appellate cases here in New York, as well as federal New York cases, where the court said the focus should be on the intention of the voter, not the mere fact that there are multiple potential residencies.
Madam President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Thank you. Senator, how would this change current law?
So in addition to the line that you just read out, this is mostly to serve as a clarification to poll workers who have in the past erroneously not followed the case law on this and have discarded ballots or required affidavit ballots of individuals unnecessarily. And we saw the impact of this in the 22nd congressional race. There was litigation that came out of that, a race decided by 109 votes, where 20 ballots were eliminated, we believe erroneously and contrary to the case law.
President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
So if I could spell out a scenario here, we have multiple elections throughout the year. We have village elections, library elections. Next week, we have school board elections and school budget votes. We have primary elections, general elections, firefighter, commissioner elections, and sometimes special elections. So all throughout the year at different times. So a scenario where someone owns a home, say, in the city, a second home upstate or maybe in the Hamptons. If that person wanted to vote for the mayor of New York City, but also wanted to vote for, say, a fire commissioner out in the Hamptons, if this were to pass, would that be possible?
President, it would not. This simply empowers people to choose where they're registered to vote and clarifies for the court and for election workers that they have that choice. You still, by way of the other provisions in our election law, can only vote in one election district at a time.
Very good. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you.
Are there any other senators heard? Hearing none, debate is closed. Senator Gineris.
Madam President, we've also agreed to restore this bill to the non-controversial calendar.
The bill is restored to the non-controversial calendar. Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ortso, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 461, those senators voting in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Castaneda Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollison, Steck, Tedisco, Walzek, Weber, and White. Ayes 40, nays 21.
The bill is passed. The bill is passed.
Calendar number 601, Senate Print 5905 by Senator Bridgeport, an act to amend the Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law.
Senator Rhodes, why do we rise?
Madam President, through you, if the senator will yield to some questions.
Does the senator yield?
Yes.
Senator yields.
Senator Bridgeport, thank you so much. Could you just explain for us the justification of the bill?
Yes, this bill prohibits dependent minors who are currently living with their parent or guardian from being named in eviction petitions, warrants, or records of the eviction, specifically so that records of it don't follow the child afterwards into adulthood, affect their ability to seek housing on their own or their credit score.
Is there a reason why?
Senator, are you asking the senator
yes, I'm sorry.
to yield?
I apologize, Madam President. If the sponsor will continue to yield.
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Why wouldn't simply sealing the record be sufficient?
Through you, Madam President, it's important to cover all of our bases, and so in addition to sealing the record of the court case, also the eviction warrant itself or the petition, to be thorough.
The sponsor will continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
So does this seal the warrant, or does it prevent a warrant from being issued in the name of the minor child?
Madam President, this prevents the child from being listed on the warrant.
Okay, but not, if I can,
Does
will
the sponsor
continue to
yield? Does
Yes.
the sponsor yields?
But not on the petition itself?
Madam President, this bill also prevents the child from being listed on the petition.
Okay. Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield? The sponsor yields.
Is this bill consistent with the provisions of the Tenant Protection Act of 2019, which requires all residents of the domicile to be listed on the petition?
Through you, Madam President, we are now required to list children on the lease, and so there is not a requirement to list children on an eviction warrant or the petition.
To another question?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Thank you, Senator. My understanding is that the Tenant Protection Act of 2019 requires any resident of the home or the apartment be notified of the existence of the petition and be named in the petition as an affected party, for lack of a better word. In that case, a minor child would have to be named in the petition, would have to be served with the petition. Is there any concern on your part that by preventing them from doing so, it is inconsistent with the Tenant Protection Act of 2019?
Through you, Madam President, I have not seen that section of the HSTPA that requires every single occupant, including children, minors, to be listed on any eviction petition or warrant, and I do not have concerns that it is inconsistent with the HSTPA.
Would the sponsor yield to another question?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Would it be fair to say that if we have a disagreement with respect to what the Tenant Protection Act of 2019 says, it is not the intention of the sponsor through this bill, to be inconsistent with the Tenant Protection Act of 2019?
Through you, Madam President, the intention of this bill is pretty clear. It's to make sure that children, minors, dependents on their parents or guardians living with them are not listed in the eviction warrant or the petition. And to in fact expand on that, this has been an issue not just in New York State, but throughout the country in states that have not even passed the HSTPA, is the listing of children or minors on eviction warrants.
On the bill, Madam President?
Senator Rhodes on the bill.
Thank you. I certainly understand the intention of the legislation. However, the Tenant Protection Act of 2019 requires minor children to be listed on the warrant, and this particular bill requires the exact opposite. We have two inconsistent provisions of law and no way for an actual practitioner to be able to reconcile those two. While I certainly understand the intention and I would love to support the legislation, I have to vote against it simply because the reality is that we have two inconsistent provisions of law, and really, if we're going to do this, we should be modifying the Tenant Protection Act so that there's clarity and not creating more confusion.
Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Seeing none, debate is closed. Senator Gineris.
Madam President, if we could restore this to the non-controversial calendar.
The bill is restored to the non-controversial calendar. Read the last section.
Section 4, this act take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gineris, Kruger, or Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator Brisport to explain his vote.
Thank you so much, Madam President, and thank you to the Democratic Conference and also the leader for bringing this bill to a vote. This bill really strikes a personal chord with me. When I was a teacher, I had a student that was a victim of an illegal lockout and illegal eviction during COVID. And it was particularly heartbreaking because this was a dream student, the kind of kid that always does their work, doesn't make any problems. If anything, just too shy. I'd always have to explain to him that he doesn't need to just, ask me to come over and ask if he got the right answer, but, raise your hand and share with the class. You're good at math, you're a good math student. And when our schools went all virtual in March of 2020 at the onset of the pandemic, I lost all contact with the students. Couldn't get him by his student records, his email for his parents, the phone number, none of that worked. Didn't hear from them from March of 2020 until October 2020, months later in the next school year, when I saw him and his mother trying to re-enroll in the school. And they explained to me that at the onset of the pandemic, that they had lost the grandfather in the family, and when they went down south to go to the funeral, when they came back, they had all their stuff out on the streets. They had been illegally evicted. And the notion that that eviction can follow a student, he's a 12-year-old kid, for 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, for no fault of his own, is you can see how traumatic it was for him to miss that much school and to miss out on opportunities. And this bill will make a difference for children throughout our state. But I would also be remiss to not talk about how devastating and violent evictions are in general throughout our state, and have to bring up that over 1 million unregulated tenants throughout New York State are at risk of unjust evictions, having their lease discontinued for no reason, seeing rent hikes of hundreds of dollars or even over $1,000. And it's imperative that after passing this bill today, and again, I thank the Democratic Conference, it's imperative that we also move good cause eviction to a vote immediately and vote yes. Thank you.
Senator Brisport to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Harkam to explain his vote.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I want to thank Senator Brisport for this important bill. And it's true, as we talk about with a whole bunch of records, things should not follow people for a lifetime in terms of credit, eviction, and they impact people for the course of their lives. But this is also about a larger discussion about our housing crisis, about a short supply which is driving an affordability crisis. And there are many components of that. Some of that have to do with the need for new building, as we discussed in the budget. But the best way to ensure housing is to keep folks in the housing they have. And so there are a number of measures that we had put in our One House budget. I hope we will continue to explore those through the remainder of this session, because protecting tenants and keeping them in their homes is really the first step and the best way to provide housing. And then we should also be, as we discussed, moving on with the other aspects of creating housing. So with that, I want to thank the sponsor, and I vote aye.
Senator Harkam to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator May to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I also rise to thank the sponsor for this bill that tries to reduce the harm that eviction causes to children. I represent a city where it's estimated that about 10% of boys in high school are functionally homeless. They're couch surfing or in any case don't have a fixed address. And so the harm of eviction and of housing instability follows kids in so many ways, makes it hard for them to succeed in school. It's traumatizing. It's got just a whole host of ill effects, and this will mitigate one of them, but I agree with Senator Harkam and Senator Brisport that we need to be taking a more holistic approach, making sure we've got the kind of affordable, stable housing that can support our children, and that we are intervening to reduce unnecessary evictions as much as possible with good cause, with the right to counsel, making sure that the tenants have the right to counsel in an eviction case, and every other way that we can assure housing stability. I vote aye.
Senator May to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Jackson to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to support the bill. In listening to the discussion on the bill by both senators in favor and against, I disagree with my colleague that this is a violation of the 2019 Tenant Protection Act, and I will look at that a little further in order to determine the validity of what he has to say. But clearly, in dealing with tenants associations and myself as a tenant association leader where I live at, lease renewals were with the adults, not kids. Kids had to be listed in the lease as being part of the family, but they don't have to sign. The agreement is with the adults in there that's going to pay the rent and in charge of signing the contract for a lease. Clearly, though, I think that this is a good bill. You're not naming children that may be 5, 10, 15, 18, even 25 when they're not signing the lease of agreement. And what's important in this is that this is an accountability matter with respect to responsibility of adults. And that's why it's important for us to try to move towards a good cause eviction bill and not deal with the fact that children should be named in any type of legal proceeding. I vote aye.
Senator Jackson to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Claire to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in support of this bill. We should be concerned about violating the rights of our children. We should be concerned about the stigmas and barriers that already follow the children who are most likely to be evicted. Children should not be named in eviction processes, and we should not even have so many as we do now because of the housing crisis that we are experiencing. And yes, we need to pass good cause eviction and other tenant protections that make sure people can stay in their homes. Eviction is a violent process. It is terrible for our families. Sometimes it follows you for the rest of your life anyway, just as an experience, and it doesn't need to follow children who take it to heart. If anyone's ever been, it is the most destabilizing thing that could ever happen to anyone, and I proudly vote aye. Thank you, Senator Bridgeport, for the bill.
Senator Claire to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Salazar to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Bridgeport, for introducing this important legislation. There is no justification for naming a child, a minor, in an eviction petition or an eviction warrant. Evictions for a family can be deeply traumatic and disruptive, especially for children. There is no need to make the process even more harmful for children by putting their names on eviction documents. I want to also thank our Majority Leader for demonstrating our commitment to preventing unjust evictions and minimizing the harms of the housing crisis in our state. And I will also urge us to take additional action through good cause eviction and policies to keep families in their homes. Thank you.
Senator Salazar to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Brooke to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. There's a lot of things I believe. Two of them are that to house someone is humane and that we should do everything we can to protect our children. That's why I want to thank Senator Bridgeport, the sponsor of this bill, thank my colleagues, and of course our Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, for bringing this bill. And I think that this House often acts on these two values, the fact that housing people and keeping them housed and keeping our families housed is a humane thing to do. And I think that this bill does that, and it protects our children. But our work is not done until we actually take further action when it comes to keeping people housed. And I want to quickly share, I didn't know we were voting on this bill today when this happened, but this weekend I hosted a baby shower for our community to hand out diapers and wipes and baby clothes. And there was a woman there who said she didn't feel comfortable going around and asking for these things. And I said, well, let's go walk together because this is my event, we're gonna walk together. And she shared with me that she has 4 kids under the age of 4. They've lived in 7 different places in the last month and a half, and they currently are on a night-by-night basis in a hotel. She doesn't have anything that she needs. And Senator Clear talked about how destabilizing that can be for young children especially. So that's why bills like this are so important, but it's also why our work will not be done June 8th if we have not also voted on good cause and other tenant protections. For those reasons, I vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Brooke to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Liu to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I think that it's clear that unjust evictions are a big problem and contribute to our housing crisis in the state of New York. This particular bill, though, is clearly common sense, and there should be no reason why anybody would not support this. To name children in eviction papers is really doing so much more harm on a permanent basis than the immediate harm by removing them from their homes, which is already bad enough. I want to thank Senator Bridgeport for this bill, and let's move on to more housing-related protections. Thank you.
Senator Liu to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Rivera to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. Every now and then you bump into bills or ideas, legislative ideas, or somebody says, like, there isn't a law about this? This is actually something we have to do, and so I'm incredibly thankful for Senator Bridgeport for bringing something that, again, as Senator Liu said, should be a common sense thing. But I would also add that some of my colleagues have spoken about what I believe is also a common sense approach in the state of New York, as that is to pass good cause eviction in the state of New York. I believe that it is a common sense idea that people should have a reason to take somebody out of their homes. If somebody is someplace where they can sleep at night, where they're not putting pressure on any other on society as a whole, and then we kick them out onto the streets, that has an impact on them, has an impact on the family, has an impact on society as a whole. So anything that we can do to minimize that should be a no-brainer, and that's why I believe that we should certainly pass good cause eviction. But in this case, this is a no-brainer bill, and I'm glad to vote for it. I vote in the affirmative. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Rivera to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Sepulveda to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President, for allowing me to explain my vote. As a veteran of housing court, I practiced there over 30 years, and to me, any time a child was named in a petition, I thought it was rather disgraceful and disgusting. Unfortunately, sometimes when you have judgments against a family and a child under the age of 18 is named and on their credit report and other areas, this could potentially show up as a liability for a child who had absolutely no responsibility for paying a bill. So I want to commend Senator Brisport for doing an excellent bill and beating me to the punch. But it's great work. And also to voice what my colleague is saying about housing in New York State, we have to do much more to keep people in their homes. We have to give more money for things like ERAP and other ways so that they can remain in their homes, seeing children. And I remind everyone that over 40% of kids that are homeless in New York City, 40% of people that are homeless in New York City are children. And so we need to do more to make sure that people remain in their apartments. So thank you, Senator Brisport. Thank you for allowing me to explain my vote. And let's make sure we continue to do everything to protect children, their names, and their future.
Senator Sepulveda to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 601, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Casanova Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Griffo, Hellman, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollison, Steck, Tedisco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Ayes 40, nays 21.
The bill is passed. Senator Gineros, that completes the reading of today's calendar.
Thank you, Madam President. If we could return to motions for a second, on behalf of Senator Hoylman Siegel on page 13, I offer the following amendments to calendar 271, Senate Print 2422, and ask that said bill retain its place on the third reading calendar.
Amendments are received and bill retain its place in the third reading calendar. Senator Gineros.
Is there any further business at the desk?
There is no further business at the desk.
Move to adjourn until tomorrow, Tuesday, May 9th at 3 p.m.
On motion, the Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, May 9th at 3 p.m.